Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have an incredible return guest for you. Her name is Mikaela Kate Schaefer, and she was with me a few podcasts ago on number 374. If you haven't listened, you can go back and hear some of her stories. But she is a leadership trainer, speaker, and coach. She has over 15 years of experience in developing men and women leaders from college age and beyond, and she trains teams from 5 to 200, as well as countless one on one coaching experiences. She's the CEO of her own personal and professional coaching and training business, where she works with the manufacturing and retail industry, the financial and legal sector, startup businesses, independent sales teams, and veterinarians. And that's how I know her. Welcome to the podcast, Mikaela.
Yeah, good to be back again and
Yeah, I'm so
excited to
happy you're
dive
back.
in.
We kind of
Yeah,
talked last time about a lot of things, but we thought we'd come back and talk about hospital culture today. So
yes.
that's where we're going to try to go, if unless we get
Yeah,
sidetracked.
we might get sidetracked.
I
Yes.
know. Well,
Yeah,
that's okay. I think if anybody listens to me, they know that that's kind
I
of
know.
the
Well,
MO for me. So if we get sidetracked, that's okay, as long as we say interesting things, right?
fair enough. Yep.
So let's start with maybe talking about healthy hospital culture. Like, what do we think that looks like? How can we know whether we have
Yeah,
healthy or not so healthy? Maybe we'll compare and
yeah.
contrast.
Yep. I feel like the short answer is you know it when it's there. It really is like a feeling,
How
right?
you
It's
feel.
those,
Yeah.
yeah, it's those cultures, those teams where it's like, man, this feels like family. There's less of a dread. There still might be a little dread Monday morning, a little tiredness, but you're excited to go. You're okay to stay late. You're staying late, maybe on a call, talking, hey, how's the weekend? Things like that. So, it's one of those things that I think you know it when it's there. There's high connection, there's great communication, there's great collaboration, all those kind of C's are there. And I feel like when I work with teams, I jump into a team, and one of the first things I do is observe meetings. And I
Mm.
say, can I come in
How
and
do
just
their
sit?
meetings go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I sit in on a meeting? And so much I find of a culture's DNA is you can see it in a meeting, how they interact with each other, who kind of takes authority, if everybody gets a say so, what kind of the vibes are, what is the efficiency, effectiveness. So all of that is there in terms of as well, are there meetings after the meeting? Or is everything truly said there and there's a healthy back and forth dynamic? So it to me is, man, you like trust. You know it when it's there, but it
Right.
feels a bit off when it's not. And obviously, we can get into more specifics, but I would throw it right back to you too. Like you've been leading your teams for many years as well. What kind of jumps off the page for you?
Well, I kind of agree with you with the meetings thing because I've had meetings at my own hospital where like certain people just didn't seem to be participating, and you
Uh-huh.
can watch it happen and you'd be like, okay,
Yep.
that person's shutting down, that
Yep.
person's shutting down. There must be something,
Yep.
under the surface that they're not either agreeing with, or they're the kind of people that don't really fight back, because
Hmm.
in my hospital, I was always very observant of the personalities, because there's some people that just don't speak up no matter what. And so
Yeah.
you almost sometimes have to either call them out or give them
Mm.
the opportunity to give their opinions. So the
Yep.
powerful voices, like I had one voice that every time we had a meeting, she was on her soapbox lecturing
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
something.
They're out there. Yep.
Right. And God love her because she was always passionate, but would
Sure.
overshadow some of the quieter members of the
Hmm.
team. And
Yeah.
so just seeing, watching the body language,
Yeah, I was
like you
just gonna
said.
say, body language is everything. And to reference, as I have to, a sports example. What we were at the Sweet 16 this last, or it was before the Sweet 16. My team was playing Kentucky, And
Okay.
it was amazing when you looked at the difference of, sorry, Kentucky fans, but the body language of the players and the interaction that they were having with one another felt completely different then I'll just say my team, right? The Cyclones, that like the connectedness, the communication, and just the body language, it says so much. And so, I mean, that's just a good tip as a leader to be better and better at learning to read and kind of discern, read the
Right.
room.
And
Um,
maybe take a step back when you're leading a meeting and try to allow other people to speak. I mean,
yeah,
this didn't always serve me well, but as a leader, I kind of lean more towards like a collaborative type of environment where I
yeah,
would ask a lot of opinions and, everybody can have their say and kind of make it a group
yeah,
decision most of the time. If everyone disagreed with me and I was like okay with the decision, I would go with them, even though I
yeah,
didn't quite think that this thing was
sure,
going to work, but
sure.
everybody else wants to try it.
Yep.
Which doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. But
Hmm.
also, when the big decisions had to be made, like jumping in
Yeah,
and just making them, okay,
yeah,
we've talked
yeah,
enough, boom, this is what we're
yeah.
going to do. But I think that doesn't work for everyone, but that
No,
worked for me. Like I
but
didn't mind the debate.
right. And I think that would be another sign I definitely throw out of a healthy culture is whenever you can give the team a sense of empowerment and ownership,
Right.
because you want them to feel that engaged and invested as you are. And so whenever you can give them a sense of decision-making power. So to me, I think that that's great. I mean, nothing kills morale more than feeling like I don't get a say and I'm just kind of a robot, do this, do that. That is a huge part of culture, you
Yeah, and
know?
I have a good idea, but nobody will listen to it, that kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think the same thing goes for if you're running that kind of team meeting and you do have the quieter individuals, like
Mm,
supporting them. So if they say
yeah,
something finally because they're afraid to
right.
talk, and then all of a sudden they come up with an idea, and then the loud voices like try to
Sure.
shush them,
Sprinkle it down.
you
Yeah,
have to kind of take their side and kind of like be
yeah,
the loud voice
yeah,
for them and say, wait a minute, that's a really good idea. Let's talk more
yeah,
about that. Because I find that too. It's like it has a tendency, personality wise, to the loud people just taking over and the
yeah.
quieter, softer people. And in veterinary medicine, there are a lot of soft people,
Right.
very
Yeah,
soft people,
makes
because those are
sense.
the kind of people that come to our business.
They're very empathetic, kind-hearted, don't
Empathetic,
rock the
people
boat. I'm just here to
pleasing.
help and serve. And yep,
Right.
very
And so
true.
sometimes it's hard to get their ideas out of them because they don't want to upset anyone. So they'll just stay quiet even though they have a better idea than the rest of the group.
Very true.
So I think
Yeah,
that's really interesting and as one of the louder people, being able to see that and give them a voice as well, I think is
yeah,
important. Yeah.
with you.
So other than those kind of ideas, are there other things that you think that we can do as leaders to help the culture change? Let's say we're in a
Yeah,
situation where we feel like it's not going well
yeah.
and there's trouble within the hospital and there's like
Hmm.
arguing
Hmm.
factions or the front against the
Sure,
back, which sometimes
sure,
happens.
sure.
Like what could a leader do in those kind of situations,
Yeah.
I think?
I mean, I kind of say leadership is, well, people out there say leadership is influence, and I kind of always add leadership is intentional influence. And
Mm,
so,
yeah, I like that.
you or you collectively as the leaders really do set the tone, set the structure. And so everything from the very first of your meetings, what you're talking about, uh, how you're leading by example, and what time do you show up to work in the morning. If you're asking everyone up else not to be late, are you the first there? You get there at the same time. Again, I brag on my Iowa State Cyclones, but our coach, his whole staff gets to their workout facilities at 5 a.m. so
Wow.
that by the time the team comes in at 6, they've already seen, hey, we've already done this. We're here,
Yes.
we're sweaty.
They did their workout already.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, that, right, the nth degree of leading by example.
And that's awesome.
But you really do set the tone as a leader in what you expect and kind of almost demand of your team. And so little things go a long way. And so I think it's good as well. I don't see this to me happen enough where you proactively think through what are the values I want my team to kind of live by, and what are the nuts and bolts of kind of the DNA that I want my culture to be. Like really thinking about
Define it.
those. Yeah,
Define your
as
culture.
a leadership team to say, I want us to be a team that lives with a high standard of excellence. And so, or a team that goes above and beyond. And so, like, I'll give a personal example. My little dog Peaches, right? She's under the weather right now. She's got some
Aw,
issues going on.
poor
And
Peaches.
so, yeah, it was 5 o'clock, of course, when I finally got around to like, okay, I need a call about my little dog. I knew it was closing time. But they couldn't see me. Everybody was about out the door, but they went ahead and they filled the prescription. We'll wait at least till you get here to pick it up. So at
Okay.
least get the ball rolling on things, right? So
Right.
little things like that of have you thought about ahead of time what you want your values culture to be? And then what does that look like? It looks like I'm going to take that 5 o'clock call, stay 15 minutes later to fill the prescription, right? It
Right.
looks like I'm going to call them the next day because they seem like an anxious client, right? And
Right.
follow up quickly.
Right.
Things like that where there's not often that intentional thought process of who do we want to be? So, okay, what does that look like?
Right.
Um,
And what are our rules and what are our
yeah,
boundaries? Because
yep,
that hospital set a boundary because they told you they couldn't see you, right?
yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough, right?
Mhm.
So it's like they were able to, though, in my opinion, do both, where I felt still appreciated, taken care of.
Right.
I understood like they probably weren't going to see me,
Sure.
but I appreciated the medicine and and I can follow up today and get in, I'm sure. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think
great
that
point.
makes the difference. And I think
Yeah,
as leaders, if you don't communicate your expectations and your values, that it can get muddy. And
yeah,
then
it does
people are
sound.
confused as to what to do in those situations.
Yeah,
If
good
they
point.
don't know
Good
what to
point.
do, like this is how we handle 5 o'clock calls,
Mhm,
and this is how we handle,
mhm.
things coming in over lunch, or, so
Yeah,
they have some kind of almost like backup. So they feel
yeah,
empowered to make those decisions without having to go ask somebody
yeah,
what's the right thing to do. They should already know if they have
right.
the
Yeah.
particular values instilled.
Right. Because a lot of times, yeah, that will come up of like, oh, what do we do in this scenario?
Right,
And if you can look back to like, well, okay, who do we want to be as a team, as a company? What would align mostly with, our value system and what we are, the culture we're hoping to build, that can potentially guide a lot of decisions.
right,
Uh,
right. Well, and I
but
think as a team member, if you're not the leader of the practice, but you're the team member,
mhm,
I
mhm,
think you can do a lot for yourself by getting to know your leader and their
mhm.
style and
Right.
trying to understand how they're wired so you can more easily adapt.
Yep.
Like obviously you want your values to align with theirs because you don't want to work
Sure.
for somebody like I did when I first
Yep.
got out of vet school. I worked with somebody that had terrible integrity,
Ah,
and I worked there for 3 years and I was too stupid to quit. I was young. It
sure.
was my first job out of vet school, and
Yeah.
but I
Yep.
was I was smart enough to know that his values didn't align with mine, and the way he ran the practice, he was doing things that I thought were unethical, immoral, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And instead of quitting, I just fought with him, and
Mhm.
eventually got fired because I was trying to change him. which was a really
Sure.
good life lesson for me, but
Right.
also the idea that like I could understand the way he wanted to run his practice and then decide that that wasn't well aligned with the way I wanted to practice. And
100%.
had I been smarter and not so young and stupid, I probably would have just left
Well,
because it was his
yeah.
practice.
Learning. Things we all
Yeah.
learn.
If he
Yeah.
wants to do things unethically, it's his
Yep.
practice, right?
Yep. Which is
But
a great takeaway of many people out there, I'm sure that, and I know you have had conversations coaching with people that you're helping them weigh, do I stay or do I go?
sure.
And in this culture,
Yeah.
and, a big thing I'll often work with people around is, are there opportunities for you to influence the culture to change?
Right.
And yes or no, or to what degree? And then if yes or no or somewhat, it comes back, I find, to the question of, well, what is staying in this culture kind of the way it is costing you? And, is it worth it? Costing you
Right.
physically, emotionally, mentally. A lot of times it's not worth it.
Right.
And, a big part, we've talked about before is like toxic people in a culture. And I mean, that's to me, until you get the cancer out, or they change, which doesn't always happen, uh, it it really hinders. I mean, it's amazing how much to me get that person or people out and the energy changes, the level of morale, and like all of it's amazing to me the how people will be like, oh wow, I didn't realize how much this was affecting me, the
Yes.
team, how
Mhm.
many of the team just weren't saying anything.
That is a really hard lesson. I
Yeah.
think that happened to me as a leader too, is that there was something going on behind my back
Mm,
and nobody told me.
sure.
And so here I'm getting gaslit by this person that
Yeah.
vouched for me, thinking that everything's hunky dory, and it really wasn't. So that's
Mm,
another thing as a leader. It's like a cautionary tale.
yeah.
And I got inklings, like, don't get me wrong, like I kind of
Sure.
knew, like under
Hindsight.
the surface, kind
Yeah.
of knew something
Yeah.
wasn't right with this person.
Hmm.
But because I'm such a trusting, positive
Yeah.
person, I was like, I let her really do a lot of damage to my practice. And that was another
Yeah.
big lesson as a leader is like, oh, you have to be really careful and you got to really pay attention to what's happening, even if the person seems on the outside that they're all,
Right.
all
Right.
for you and great. You got to pay attention.
Yeah.
I've
Yep.
known many veterinarians that have gotten embezzled by their,
Oh,
best
yeah.
friends and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So as a leader, you sometimes have to be a little skeptical, I think. But
100%. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Because I've heard this somewhere and I just keep always saying it is like behavior is a language. And I think that's the other thing with culture is the teams that have great cultures. It's like they don't say, "Oh, we're so connected and we love each other and it's awesome." Like they don't have to say that because it just is.
just feel it. Yeah.
Whereas the ones I always kind of like, okay, are the ones that like say a lot of the right things, but it feels maybe a bit forced, or it
Yeah.
feels. I mean, the ones I find that are the just has felt easiest and best that I've worked with. They don't have to say it, right? It is so embedded in who they are, that it's just natural, right? To always
Right.
come in early on time, to always be considerate of another department, whatever it might be.
Right.
But
And being,
yeah.
I think part of a really great team culture is being open to the other team members' difficulties. Like this person's kid is sick and they have to
Yeah.
go home
Yeah.
early and I have to pick up the slack. But I know that when my
Hmm.
kid's sick, then they'll pick up the slack for me.
Yeah.
Just kind of
Yeah.
that kind of collaborative environment and
Mm.
not keeping score so much. It's kind of
Yeah.
like in your
Yeah.
family. some people have more abilities than others, and sometimes you just have
Uh-uh.
to be like, well, I'm the rock star, and
Yeah.
this person doesn't have quite as much going on as I do, and so I just have to kind of pick up the slack for them, but doing it willingly and for the good of the hospital and the clients and the
Yeah.
patients, knowing that there's going to be ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be good
Yeah.
days and bad days when you're in a hospital. It's always going to happen. And just because you had a bad day doesn't mean that you have a bad culture,
Yeah.
you know?
I think you made me mention it, but you just reminded me of it again is another, I think, sign or symptom, is that department silos when you have marketing isn't working with sales or the techs, right, aren't working well with the
The
doctors or the front
receptionists or the
staff.
doctors. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that area division silos are a huge sign that you're missing some sort of collaborative meetings every week that should be happening, or some sort of you're not able to be on the same page collectively, where the big organization, vision, goals, priority is somehow less important than, well, my team's doing good,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like they
Or
can't get it
we do
together.
everything right at the front desk. It's those people in the
Yeah.
back that
Well,
aren't
I don't know what happens after it leaves, right?
right. Yeah. When I send that pep
Yeah.
back there, all hell breaks loose and nothing goes
Yeah.
right. And just
Yeah.
kind of that almost that accusatory thing. So if you're seeing that happen in your practice, either as a leader or as a team member, what are your answers? Like what would be a good way to
Yeah.
start reconciling? Okay, we have a problem with, CSRs against
Sure.
technicians
Sure.
or
Yeah.
CSRs against the back.
Yeah.
How would you start with
Yeah.
that?
I mean, definitely a meeting is needed in terms of bringing, whether it's everybody together or kind of the key leaders together, to just do what you can to get on the same page where you kind of have say, hey, we're better together than we are apart. What do you need from me? What do I need from you? To figure out a way to just kind of make it more of a unit and to say, as a leader, like, hey, if you're struggling, we're all struggling. If you're struggling, we're all struggling, and do what you can to have a back and forth so that somehow you're able to build a connection there so that there's a genuine concern for one another in their department, and start to put in some maybe goals or priorities that help them just consider one another a little better. I see a lot too that happens is they just don't have enough connection points in terms of like focused meetings. Maybe it's the daily huddle, maybe it's the end of the day check in. How did this go? The midday check in together, right? Or the Monday, okay, game plan for the week. It's amazing how much those aren't happening to begin with. So it makes sense that nobody's connected and everybody's a bit disjointed. So things like that. And I'd say too, if you're very disjointed, I'd kind of go heavy on those at start to say, hey, let's do this every day for 2 weeks
Right.
and then see if the tide turns a bit.
Start to feel better. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can do less and less as you kind of get in a rhythm. But to me, you almost have to really force then that connection, communication. Well, what's frustrating to you in your day? Well, this is, how it trickles down to me, and it's frustrating. We just hopefully give them space to feel heard, and hopefully that's enough. And usually too in those interactions is what might come out is a toxic employee.
Sure. Yeah, they'll
And
say they'll all point at the same person.
yeah, they're like, well, we're trying,
Yeah, but this
you know?
person is disruptive. Yeah.
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 Um,
Other thing I thought of as you were saying that I've done in my own practice is I was big into staff meetings and I
mhm.
really like to do games because I just like to do
Yeah.
fun things. So that was
Yeah.
kind of my
Mhm.
MO. And so what I would do when I felt like the team was kind of disjointed, like the doctors and the techs and the
Mhm.
the front office staff, is I would like plan a game and then I would put them on a team to play the game with the different departments. So I would
Uh-huh.
put one doctor, one technician, one receptionist on one team and kind
Yep.
of almost force them to work together, but doing something fun.
Yep. Yep.
And that would sometimes work from the standpoint of kind of getting them to know each other on more of a personal fun level.
Yes.
And then they seem to be a little bit more empathetic. Like, I know this
Mhm.
person better now. We were on the same team. We won this
Yeah.
game, or we got to play this game, or whatever, I would plan.
Mhm.
And it seemed to kind of bond people a little bit. So it's a little
Yeah.
harder to talk badly about somebody that you just had a really good time with and that
Right.
you kind of
Right.
like because you got
All
to
of a
know them
sudden.
better.
Yeah. Oh, we have a
Um,
similarity. Yeah. Yep.
Right. And be like, oh, well, I can see that this doctor isn't so mean because now I had a really good time playing a game with
Yeah.
her or whatever, or the type
Whatever.
that sometimes worked for me. So if I
Right.
really saw this person and this person aren't getting along, I wouldn't tell them that I was doing that.
Sure.
I would say
Yeah.
I'd pick the teams at random,
Here we go. Out of a
or I
hat.
would tell a little
Yeah.
white lie that I forced them to be together.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also it would seem to work because then they
Right.
would be like, oh, that was a really fun game. And we got to,
Hmm.
it wasn't so
Smart.
intimidating as when in a
Yeah.
work environment. And the
Yep.
other thing that sometimes works, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like sometimes cross training, like
Oh, yeah.
putting a technician at the front desk for the afternoon,
Right.
them answer the phone and them charge out the
Yep.
clients. And the same thing with bringing the receptionist into the back and seeing what happens in surgery and how physical it is. Because sometimes the back
Right.
is like, well, all the receptionists do is sit up there. They're
Okay.
just
Right.
sitting. And
Yeah.
so
Are they
you have to
really
understand how hard
booking
it is.
appointments or are they on Google or what's, yeah, they on Facebook? What's,
Right. And they don't understand how hard that job is,
mm,
until they're up there and they're like, oh,
yeah.
I don't want to do that job
Haven't
anymore.
talked to clients and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and have clients
No.
yelling at them or questioning them about the
It's
bills. And
it's like when mom's home all day with the kids, and you're like, "Well, Dad, here's a week at home. You see how you like it." Yeah,
right, have a good time. So sometimes that works. It doesn't always, and sometimes you don't have time to cross-train people,
yeah,
to put them in different positions. But if you can,
great idea.
I do think it creates some empathy.
Hmm.
Like I sat at the front desk a few times and answered phones and I was like, I that's not fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and right, because I was thinking as I've been in my vet recently, like they're so nice and generous and compassionate, like, and then how many of these, crazy pet people do they see a day, right?
Are
Who's
calling
I
them
like
at
to
five
think I'm
o'clock saying my dog's been
right,
sick all day. And they're
right,
like, why didn't you
right.
bring it in at 3?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it,
Yeah,
that's what happens. And they have to
yeah,
continually and answer the same questions. And,
right.
it is
Yeah,
it is very repetitive. And I
yeah,
think sometimes we forget how difficult each part of the hospital is in its
yeah,
own way.
yeah.
Like I would always say, oh, thank God I'm not a technician because I don't have to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah,
Oh,
yep,
running a urine? Nope, that's not my
yeah,
job. You
yeah,
guys run the urines, just that kind
yeah,
of thing. So
yeah.
I
And
think,
kind of on that note, that reminds me, just yesterday I had a conversation with a vet who was saying, she's a tech but she's like, one of their doctors had just left to another job. And she was like, in hindsight, I realized one thing, and she was sad about it, but then she kind of realized now that they were gone how much she appreciated the one that was still there because she said, man, she is so quick to jump in for whatever, whereas the
right,
other
to
one
help.
actually wasn't like to do a tech duty, right? I think, I forget the example she gave, but for a leader to be to say nothing's beneath me,
Right.
I can jump in and I can do this and I
Yeah.
can be the leader that works out at 5 a.m. when you're coming in at 6, all those
Yeah.
things.
It's so important, I think.
Yeah, people
And
are watching.
when you're a leader to get to the point where you're not above doing anything, like there's a
Mhm.
balance, right? Like you don't want to be cleaning all the
Sure.
cages and mopping the floor.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
don't want to
you
be
should,
doing
right.
all of that as a leader. However, if you're
Mhm.
done with all your appointments and you wrote up all your records and you go back to check on your team that's in surgery and they're in the weeds, And they're like,
Yeah.
well, we're trying to recover this dog and we're trying to clean up that
Hmm.
cage because that dog just crapped on itself.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can just say, okay, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to wrap
Mhm.
packs? You want me to wake up this
Yeah.
dog? Like, what can I do to help you guys get out of here on time? And
Yeah.
if you can be that servant leader,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also, when they're capable of doing the jobs, you stand back and let them do what they're
Mhm.
supposed to do. I think that's a really important balance to have.
Yeah.
Like I would
'Cause-
never turn down, I've got to pick up, poop on the front stoop because nobody saw it. Like
right.
that's an
Right.
important thing that you just don't
Yeah.
go in and say, "Oh, I can't do that." So
Yeah.
I think it's a good
And
leadership
And
quality.
you don't always get the hiring right and finding those same like-minded people.
Right.
But if you're leading in that very servant way, in the way you'd hope they would, you find out really quick who is like-minded. If
Right.
you're doing that and the next day they have a little extra time on your hands and they're not just rushing out the door and clocking out and they're willing
Yes.
to, you
Help the
just
other
realize
people.
really quick who's your similar people
Right.
values. Yeah, which yeah, you don't
Yeah.
always get hiring right, but
No, and because
yeah,
it's difficult because you're only
it
meeting
is
these
hard.
people a few times and
Yeah.
you just have to make a call. And so I would
Hmm.
caution teams if you're frustrated with your leadership, you're feeling like you have a toxic culture and you're
Yeah.
feeling like just nothing's going well, I would encourage a little bit of patience because even the leaders with the best intentions don't always get it right. Like I got it
Yeah.
wrong many times and I had to turn around and fire somebody or I
Yeah.
had to coach them for like 6 months and I just couldn't change them. So I would
Yeah.
have to let them
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
It's a tough position to be in sometimes
Yeah.
hiring
Yeah.
people.
100%.
Yeah, because they
And
don't always fit.
yeah, I think the longer I'm in this, the less and less patience I have for people that just kind of aren't aligned or aren't, I'm like, write them up.
Yeah. Well,
If
that's
they're
true because it is a hard thing to
um,
do and not everybody wants to do it, but you kind of
yeah,
have to. And
yeah,
it's really to protect the rest of your hospital.
yeah,
The mistakes I made the most as a leader were not firing people quick enough.
yes,
Like
that's
100% guaranteed. The people that I ended up
amen to
firing, I
that.
should have I should have done it, 6 months ago, a year
Amen to
ago.
that.
Yeah,
And
it's a
then
tough thing.
that reminds me, I just heard this quote from Nick Saban, the Alabama coach or former Alabama coach, but he said, we're so I guess not quick to have that confrontation or call somebody out or get them in for performance like conversation that needs
Review.
to
Yeah.
happen. We think, oh, maybe we'll get better, right? Or we just,
Yeah.
oh, we don't want to
A
have it
second
because we're
chance or a third
conflict
chance.
avoidant. But
Hmm.
he goes on to say the problem with waiting and delaying is you don't realize you're losing more and more respect for that person, but then even worse than that potentially is your team is losing respect for you as a leader
Yes.
because you're not holding them accountable. You're not keeping the culture in a healthy place because you're just
Right.
letting, things go.
Yes.
And that would be, I'd say the other thing I'd throw out is great cultures have leaders that have great accountability. They
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
tolerate bad behavior, that they don't tolerate standards that aren't what you want. They hold people accountable, they write people up when they need to. And it's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
huge.
People aren't always going to like you and you're the leader. And that's hard for people like us that like people and are
Sure.
people pleasers. It's really hard to be a leader because you want everyone to like you. And it's unfortunately not possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you get the right team and they respect you, they will like you and respect you, which is kind of a
Huge.
two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah. Huge
Yeah.
stuff.
So what have we not said that we should say? Should we do a quick like
Yeah.
boundary thing
Ooh,
or what do you think? What did we miss about
man.
cultures?
Probably a lot, right?
Well, knowing that we can always talk again. We already talked at the beginning of
Yeah.
this podcast about coming back with Heather, one of the other coaches that
Yeah.
we work with, and having some discussions about boundaries and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll absolutely do it
Yeah.
again. But about
Send
this subject,
send Julie your questions around boundaries that you want us to answer.
yes, yes, all the
Um,
questions.
yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna sneeze.
Um, oh, bless you.
Right.
Um, culture. Yep. Um, I mean the short and long is it's everything. I guess
It's
it
kind of a
reminds
buzzword,
me,
but
yeah.
it's really important, right?
And even, a good, because of that, because it's such a buzzword, because it's such a kind of a big, can feel like we all know what we're talking about, but do we know, are we all aligned in what we think about
What
it?
we really want. Yeah.
It's a good thing to like throw it out in a team meeting to say, what does culture mean to you? Three words that you would say define our culture.
I love that question.
See,
Yeah.
are people aligned, way off, similar? Another thing I do with teams is it's this like one page, 120 values. It's like, yeah, freedom and hard work and like 120 words.
Right.
And I have all the team members pick your top five that represent what you feel like this culture is,
Love that.
this team is. It's good words and negative
Right.
words, so they can choose. And just to have, I think, the conversation as a team to say, are we on the same page? Are we aligned? Are we day in, day out doing the things that make this the culture that we want it to be? Would we refer our friends to come work here? That's, I mean, a
That's
big
big.
sign, right?
That's big.
So
I love
yeah.
that.
But I
And don't be
just,
afraid to talk about it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
In your
right.
hospital. Like it should be a topic
Yeah.
of conversation frequently.
Right.
Like, how are we doing?
If people want a fun show to watch, I just got done watching on HBO the documentary on the Columbia space disaster.
Oh,
In I
okay.
think it was 2003 when the Columbia, didn't make it back. But it's fascinating. I mean, it's not a good story, obviously, but how at the end of it, really the issue was it was all about the team culture. It wasn't even that they hadn't defined, they were pretty much, they knew probably what the problem was
Yeah.
even before they had launched. But what the issue was the culture. It was a culture of silence, a culture of you can't,
Nobody spoke up.
yeah. Well, the people that felt like they knew what the problem was felt like they couldn't speak up. There
Right.
was huge department silos. And so, we're all not in potentially a life and death business. I mean, pets maybe, yeah.
Right.
Um, but it it comes back to culture, even at
Yeah.
NASA,
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so
It's an
really
important
interesting.
thing. Even if you have a very, very small hospital. And the bigger your
Yeah,
hospital, the more effort you have to put in to keep your culture solid.
great point.
Because you
Yeah,
have to really get to know your team, get to know what people need. I found myself the longer I ran my hospital, the sometimes the more disconnected I would be from the team because of the fact
sure.
that
You should fit
we were
in.
getting bigger, but we also would have new people a lot. And
Yeah.
I just like I got this mindset that, oh, it's another new person. And I
Mm,
didn't really want to put the effort in that I
sure.
had put in with the people that I had had for years. And so I
Yeah.
really had to remind myself that, look, you got to get to know these people, even if they're new and you think they're only going to be here for a couple years because they're,
Yeah.
it's like a kid coming into the kennel and they're going to leave eventually, you
Yeah.
really have to, you really have to still invest your
And the
time and
time.
energy as the
Yeah.
leader. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you do feel like it's a lot of effort and you don't always get the reward, if
Or
people
they
leave.
leave, or
Yeah, you put in a lot of time and then they
even for
quit.
good reasons, right? They
Sure. Oh,
move,
yeah.
or yeah,
And I
yeah.
wanted them to leave. Like I wanted people to grow up,
Mm,
either go to tech school or go to vet school.
sure.
Like you want them
Sure.
to to grow. But
Yep.
sometimes it's a lot of effort to keep getting new people in and then
Right.
rebalancing the culture and then the next new person.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't get to be an effort. So you really have to remind yourself how important it is so you can stay in the game and you don't
Yeah.
start to pull back. Because a few times I'd feel myself going, ugh, another new person. I don't, and it,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
you get like
It's that
neutral ground.
like also you are as the leader, the DNA and the culture, and
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I can't take a break either from, being who
sure.
I want the team to be.
Yeah,
And yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So you got to really
timing.
pay attention to your own feelings and thoughts about it too,
Yeah.
because there were days when I was like, oh, one more new person. I can't take it, And then
Right.
I'd be like, oh, here we go again. But
Here we go.
you have to
Yeah.
like put your head down and keep going, right? Because it's important.
True.
Yeah, I love that. All
Yep.
right. Well, if anybody out there has any questions about this subject or boundaries is maybe
Yeah.
something we're going to talk about next, or you have any questions for Mikaela, tell them where they can find you, but they can also send me questions on my website and my
Yeah.
email.
Find me at mikaelakate.com, Mikaela Kate.com, releasing your voice at gmail.com for email, and yeah, social media, all the good stuff.
Love it.
Love to talk more.
Well, Mikaela will certainly be back because we work together. So
Yeah.
I have touch points with her frequently. So we'll come up with
Yep.
more ideas to
Yep.
get back on the podcast. So if you've enjoyed this and you think it resonates, send it to your friends. Tell them about the podcast. And if you have any questions, please reach out to one of the two of us so next time we can answer them.
Love it. Love. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Mikaela. Thanks for being
Thank
here. Have
you.
a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye, Mikaela.
Bye.